On behalf of our ownership, John Mozeliak, entire front office and scouting department, we are just ecstatic with Cooper Hjerpe being available at our pick. When you look at his body of work, his 3-year track record, we've seen the upper ranges of his velocity. He provides a unique look that really can make hitters uncomfortable. And he's someone that we hope can move fast once we get him in our org, once we hand him off to Gary LaRocque, Tim Levesque in our player development department. And so with that, I will open up for questions.
Right off the bat, how would you compare this left-hander's stuff with Randy Flores' stuff?
Well, as context, I signed as a senior and was provided a $20,000 bonus in the 9th round. And so by that as a barometer, he is leaps and bounds and universes better than I ever was.
And how would you characterize his stuff?
You know what? I think that he has tremendous weapons. You know, his fastball, all of the pitches come from a unique angle. They all tunnel very well. You know, we've seen his velocity consistently that he maintains. And one of the things you look for is stamina in a pitcher. And you look at his workload, what he's done this year, the bulk that he's done. We haven't seen the drop off that you might see in someone who you wonder whether or not they can sustain. And as you've seen in the modern game, we wouldn't be surprised if he starts reaching the upper echelons of his velocity a little bit more than he's doing now. And even if he doesn't do that, you can clearly see by his velocity, by his walk rate and his strikeout rate, that this is someone who knows how to pitch and has the weapons for it to matter at the highest level.
I heard one of the analysts on there drop the John Tudor comparison. How does that line up in your opinion? And also Chris Sale was a comparison that was thrown out there.
Well, as you know, I've been asked many of times to provide comps, and I've kind of deflected that question. I often think, especially with young ball players, whatever name you're attached to first and gets printed is something that could stick for a while. What I did like watching is in that little side-by-side presentation, you could see the looseness and movement. You could see the freedom. You could see someone that looks athletic in their own unique way. And certainly when you are looking at pitchers, there's lots of ways to get outs, and his way is unique and matches some of the names that he's been comped to.
His herky-jerkiness, kind of unconventional throw in, is that a plus in your eyes?
You know what? I think through the lens of strikeouts and walks, that's one of the ways that we try to gauge whether or not that herky-jerkiness is a problem or an asset. And so you look if someone can repeat their delivery, and if they can repeat in the zone. When they're trying to go down and away, do they hit down and away? When they're trying to bury a pitch, do they bury a pitch? You know, and our scouts came away really impressed with this pitchability. And then you add to the fact that it was matched by weapons that allow that pitchability to play at the highest levels.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Katie Wu, The Athletic.
Hi, Randy. Nice to see you again.
Same.
When you're looking at what Cooper brings and his overall makeup as a pitcher, how does he profile? You mentioned the walk rate, the strikeout rate, the pitchability. How does he profile as a player that the scouting department has been prone to recognize and value over the past couple of years?
You know, it's a very difficult thing to get inside a person, as you all know. Look at your own children, your own relatives, your own siblings and friends. It's difficult. People change, people evolve. And so I don't want to pretend to know what's inside of him. But what I do know is this last year that he pitched a tremendous workload, that he took the ball, that he was ill at the end of the season and did not bow out of competition. And that when things got tough, he wasn't out of there in the 3rd and 4th and 5th inning, but that he used whatever weapons he had that day. And I would say that he has the will and the grit that you look for when you're watching someone compete on that field.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to Derek Gould, St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Hey, Randy, do you like my palatial LA janitor's closet here?
I do like that, but I'm even more impressed that on year 3 of doing Zooms, you're still figuring out how to undo the mute button.
No. I got the mute button off. It just was so loud here. They're doing yeah. So I didn't want to.
All right. Fair enough.
So, but thank you for qualifying my tech skills there. Hey, a couple of quick questions, Randy.
Yep.
One, how did y'all wed what you saw in person with him versus what Hawkeye might tell you about him, and how much did that kind of give you this global view of him that really became appealing?
Well, I would say we try to wed or to blend all pieces of information across all of our picks. And so I wish that I could provide this secret sauce here on the Zoom to everyone and explicitly lay out how it weds. But there's a couple things simply that you're looking for: the eye test and the assessment or data or hard data. And, to the eye test, it looks unique. To the eye test, there's velocity. When you pair that with the pitch metrics available, there is some agreement there that makes you have conviction. Well, when you get to that spot in the draft, that there really is an exciting player available. And so in the absence of assessment data, when you pick high school players, you have to have conviction that the pick you're making is congruent with your process. Now, when there's disagreement, which there often is, especially as you move further and further away from your first pick, that's where you start looking for some tiebreakers and other signals that give you the conviction to pull a magnet. But it is nice in a case like this, where both parts of our process, including how the pitcher moved as well, were athletic. He performed to the eyes and he performed to the metrics.
Where do you think his most significant stride was this year with like secondary pitches? Obviously the fastball plays, but playing off of that and becoming more consistent with something other than that to show. Did you see a significant stride there this year?
Yeah, you know what? I think how he did that would probably be something you'd ask Cooper if you guys are able to get on a Zoom with him. But pitchers improve. They do. Otherwise, their freshman year, they would pitch like their junior year. And their junior year, they would pitch the way they do in AA and in the big leagues. And so what I think it conveys, D, is that he has the aptitude for improvement. And very few pitchers are drafted one way and get to the big leagues the exact same way they were when you drafted them. There's just getting to the big leagues and staying in the big leagues is hard. But a signal of aptitude is the ability to adapt from one year to the next, and he showed that.
Randy Character, ESPN 101.
Hey, Randy, you mentioned that he could move quickly through the system. What are the things that he needs to do to get here to the major leagues?
Well, certainly the way Gary LaRocque, our farm director, says is that the player will let you know when he's ready for the major leagues. And so I think I could put some benchmarks out there, but he would have to meet those. Gary LaRocque talks about playing to the level of the league. But something that we really have to keep in mind is that with the draft being this late and there being a gap between his last outing and today, you really have to get him into the system and find out what his readiness is like. How much rest has he gone? Has he thrown? Has he gone on the mound? He has probably one of the most innings pitched in selected pitchers so far. So how much more can he throw? What does that do to set him up for his workload next year? It's a long-winded way of saying what he has to do depends on how ready he is, and then what the hitters tell us about what he needs to do for his next step.
Jeff Jones, Buffalo News Democrat.
Hey, Randy, as you were talking to Derek about the process and the way that you all sort of work through things ahead of a selection, I was curious if the success that you've had with sort of more advanced, higher level college pitchers in the last couple of years and the way that they've moved through the system plays into that. If maybe that's a part of your process that you all know you've had success with in the past, and that makes a guy like Hjerpe maybe a little bit more of a good option for you all because of the success that you've had in that area.
You never really want to make a pick because one worked out before, right? That's a little scary thing, or we would have looked for the tallest, most third baseman with power in the draft and picked him independent of where our process ranked him on our board. And I'm referring to Jordan Walker. So our process is something that we lean into. I would say that also my predecessors have made selections of both high school pitchers and college pitchers who have had success. So I don't think it's something particularly unique under my leadership these last now 7 drafts. But what I do think is that there's discipline. And sometimes if someone is good and scouts think that they're good, you pull the magnet and don't overthink it.
Ben Frederickson, St. Louis Post-Dispatch.
Hey, Flo, I'm curious, when you see his stuff, you guys have had success over the years of having guys who turn into starters debut as relievers. With his strikeout stuff and his workload, what he's done before has shown that stamina. Does that make it more or less likely that he could be a guy who maybe goes that route, or are there reasons to think that it would be more of a traditional path? Or do you have any? Is it too early to tell on something like that?
No, it's a good question. I think these things aren't made in a vacuum, and so oftentimes it's opportunity. Here you have Adam Wainwright, whose opportunity came, a former teammate of mine, because he was in the pen. Now, if he was on a losing team and was not contending for a World Series, I bet maybe he would roll out of bed, and his first year he'd be a starter. So a lot of that just depends on the context of the player, where they're at in their journey, and where your major league team is at. what's exciting is to hear these types of questions about this pitcher this early, because there really is hope that he has a chance to move quick for us with a role that, as we all know, this game is evolving. The starter innings pitched and usage and reliever usage. You're seeing with our own team, multiple innings relievers. But what we do believe that independent of the context of the team is that he has both the stamina, the stuff, and the will to start. And that's a good starting spot.
My second one was, I guess the people who analyze this stuff were under the assumption that this was kind of a pitching short class. Were you guys surprised that he was still available for you there?
I'm always interested in where the class ends, right? I have to get back in there and we have 19 more rounds. And so does a pitching short class end at pick 15? Does it end at round 15 or round 5? I recall also that in 2020, it was a lean into college players because they had an absence of season. And our first 3 picks were high schoolers. I can recall in 2019, if I were to Google and remember, 2019 was a pitching short class, and we took Thompson and Palante in that draft, along with pitchers like Connor Thomas and Logan Gregg and Jack Ralston in our system. So, I can't control what people write about a particular strength or weakness of a class. What we do is just try to line up our board the best we can, and then make decisions based off of how our board lines up.